Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Sip and Solve. My name is Kyle Matthies, and I serve as the Global Director of Product Management for Experian, where I'm responsible for the operations and development of our global data network, which is a global business credit information API platform designed to give users access to international business information used in a range of business decisions, including managing risk and meeting compliance obligations. Today, I'll be walking through some common challenges with global business information so you can better understand data availability and regional differences and how they affect international business risk management strategy. Now, I have my morning espresso with me this morning, actually my second, that I'll be sipping throughout the session. It's morning here in California, and so wherever you're joining us from, please feel free to grab a time zone appropriate beverage. Since we only have 15 minutes, we'll go ahead and get started. Now, maybe this sounds familiar. We're seeing a trend toward consolidating international risk management with teams that have traditionally been focused on domestic portfolios. This is putting people who were not previously responsible for international risk into unfamiliar roles, where they're working quickly to understand the differences and nuances of domestic and international risk information. While many of the fundamentals are the same, it's important to be mindful of key differences in data availability and freshness and how those play out around the world, and strategies you can use to help mitigate that risk and improve the performance of your portfolio. Now, many clients are familiar with Experian as the leading U.S. credit bureau, but what you may not have known is Experian has over 20,000 employees around the world operating in 43 countries. Our expertise in consumer and business credit information, combined with our global reach, give us a unique advantage in the market, both at home and abroad. So no matter where you do business, Experian has leading solutions to help you navigate the complex and rapidly changing business landscape with informed confidence. Today, we'll take a look at how our global reach can help enrich decision-making, especially for our US-based clients that are expanding or already operating internationally. First, let's pause and take a look at some of the common challenges with international business risk management. The first is a lack of coverage. Now, many jurisdictions have limited reporting requirements, which means reports are often incomplete or lack a sufficient data coverage for a sound business decision. Also, as many companies have tended to have international operations operate independently of their home country, many have found they have fragmented supplier networks covering each of those regions that were developed by those autonomous regions. This has led to increased complexity and cost, a lack of scale in global volume, and juggling multiple contracts and invoices. So a lot of friction involved with maintaining so many suppliers. Next up is global consistency. Play a fun game here in a bit that looks at how global format differences can make it very difficult to compare reports from one country to another. This can also require multiple credit policies and again further increases the technical integration of credit solutions. And lastly, managing stale data. Reports are often out of date in certain regions of the world, potentially by 2, 3, or more years. And this makes it difficult to rely on a risk analysis and recommendations coming out of those reports. So there's some inherent trade-offs here, but we'll present a couple strategies to help deal with that. Let's take a look real quick at components of reports, broadly speaking. And as I said, they're going to share many of the same fundamentals, foundations. First, registry information. So this is official legal business name, registered address, the status of the company. And then moving on, we've got some key firmographics. This can include the industry that the business operates in, number of years it's been in business, key figures such as sales information. And then we move into the much more detailed sections, including the risk analysis and oftentimes accompanying credit limit recommendation. We also see the directors and officers and potentially corporate linkage and ownership. But while this information can generally be consistent around the world. It may not be consistently available from country to country. Now, to take a look at how that plays out more specifically, I like to use this international data bullseye. And at the center, the European Union has both the most robust data infrastructure, meaning how quickly data can be updated in all of its delivery channels, as well as the jurisdiction's transparency. The transparency really is what drives disclosure of key information publicly. So in the EU, we tend to see businesses of all sizes that are required to publicly share at least some of their key financial information, if not full audited publicly available financial statements. Whereas moving one ring out in North America, the US and Canada typically will see financial information available on only those public companies that are where there's the requirement to disclose. However, we do still see a very robust data infrastructure in North America, which means that credit reports will typically be up to date, the underlying data up to date, the moment the report ships. But as we move out into these outer rings, the upper middle income, low and lower middle income, we see a degradation of the transparency as well as the data infrastructure, meaning less data is required to be made publicly available, and the underlying infrastructure, it can be difficult to maintain information so that when reports ship, even if they're delivered in real time, the underlying data may be several years out of date. Now, as we look at some different solutions with international information, keep this bullseye in mind and kind of where you're doing business and how that may affect some of these key challenges may affect your access to information. Now, we'll pause really quick to play a little game. I've got two girls, 4 and 6, and they love to play this. My wife and I will hand out a puzzle like this at dinner to buy a few moments of quiet. So take a moment to see if you can spot some differences between the image on the left and the image on the right. I'm sure some have quickly spotted the red beak, possibly the color of the flower petals. Go ahead and put the answer key up here. Now, this is a game. It works really well. Girls get excited, and my wife and I can enjoy our dinner with a little bit more peace. But imagine, do you want your credit managers playing this game all day long, comparing a French report to a German report to a Brazilian report? The fact is, format differences really vary country to country because the controlling bureau is setting that native or domestic format. Now, one of the things Experian has done to help address this problem is by implementing a global business credit report format. And this means that French report, the German, and the Brazilian report can be compared side by side, and you don't have to spot the difference. You can also deploy now a global credit policy and much more easily integrate reports from around the world into a single system. Question we get from clients often is, are reports always available in real time? Now, the truth is, here at Experian, we can deliver a report anywhere in the world in real time. But the really important question that clients are looking for is, can I rely on the information in that report? Is the underlying data up to date? And referring back to the data bullseye, the fact is, as you get into those outer rings, it's more likely the case that the data infrastructure limits how readily available those updates can be in real time. So as a user, your choice is to take a real-time report and be aware that it could be out of date, or to order a developed or a researched report, which is updated on demand. So the benefits of that are that you are going to be getting the latest information as opposed to having to wait potentially a couple days for it to be turned around. But I would suggest that ever since COVID, we've seen very dynamic global business environment, high interest rates, looming threat of inflation, and oftentimes those reports that are out of date may be very difficult to rely on. Lastly, let's take a look at how these challenges can affect your credit policies globally. Now, because of the differences in data, just moving from the US to the EU, where you'd expect a lot more financial information, you may be able to make tweaks to your credit policy to take advantage of that. Look at key financial ratios, other statistics that might be helpful in further assessing the risk of a company. But as you move out into those outer rings, again, being aware of the lack of information. And so what policies can you bring to bear to help protect from risk? Things like using trade credit insurance to help protect against losses, or implementing smaller credit terms, which then can be built over time and with experience with that particular company. So the fact is, it may not be possible to achieve a single cookie cutter approach globally, but being aware of the challenges and how you can adapt will help you achieve the greatest degree of success. Now, in the final review here, I want to touch on some legal challenges that we're seeing globally and how that affects business credit reporting. Really focusing here on GDPR and similar laws that affect privacy. These are largely understood to affect consumers and natural persons, not to apply to businesses. However, at the start, we looked at the inclusion of directors and officers, shareholders, that bringing those natural persons in, very key to reports, understanding the risk, who's doing business here, also being able to track for compliance purposes. And yet those do start to make some of these consumer privacy laws more relevant. So what I'd like is just to encourage everybody who's using international data to make sure you're staying up to date with the changes. This has been very dynamic. And so be aware of your obligations that help protect your business. Now, as we wrap up, the product I manage, Global Data Network, or GDN, here for Experian globally, I want to take a quick look at GDN by the numbers, some key statistics on our coverage. So we do offer 175 countries with a same-day risk report. Within one business day, you can get a fresh credit report in 175 countries. 94 countries where we have instant verification. This is going out live to the registries to verify the information, as well as now getting back into credit reports, 35 countries where we have real-time coverage of this business information. Again, real-time defined as the updates behind the scenes. These reports are always maintained and up to date. 29 of which offer alert monitoring, so you can be kept informed in real time of changes to risk, as well as batch scoring, where you can run your whole portfolio through periodically, whether that be monthly, quarterly, or even annually, to be able to take a look and stay on top of changes in your portfolio. Now, as we wrap up today, some key points to remember. First, even though we touched on it at the end, legal and compliance should always come first. Some of these will require development on your part, so be aware. Also, something to consider when you have development teams offshore or customer support teams, those can represent onward transfers of data. Take the time to understand the market, the culture, and the political environment, as those can all also represent risks or even opportunities where you may have various tax advantages or a better product market fit. Data is different around the world and will require you to take some different approaches, but through standardization, you can put in place a plan that helps to streamline that as much as possible. And lastly, Experian is here. We'd be happy to help your company, talk through some of your specific challenges and how our expertise can help you better navigate the landscape of international business.
Would you like to gain additional insight? Why not join our private group on Facebook? You can engage our experts, access exclusive content, and chat with your peers. Just scan the QR code with your phone or go to bit.ly/sip-solve-chat.